Hey traders, Raghi here, and in tonight's free video I'm going to follow up on the trade of the week that we had 2 weeks ago from this Monday on the yen. And I wanted to follow up on this for two reasons. One, it allows me to show you not just the entry but the trade management, which is so important. And I also get to give you an idea of what my ongoing plan is for two of the yen pairs that I'm watching really closely. So first of all, I realize not everybody is fluent in currency trading. And in these free videos, number one, my members watch this stuff because they know this isn't fluff. And a lot of my new members love these videos because it gives them some step-by-step as they're learning about the world of currency trading. And probably the most difficult concept for a lot of traders to wrap their heads around as currency traders is the fact that you're trading one thing, one currency, against another versus a single stock or a single futures contract. But I'm going to show you why that's so powerful and actually allows you to find better trades on a single theme. So what's our theme here? Our theme is that I want to ultimately buy yen. The reason we want to buy yen is that it's been strengthening at a quick clip. It's been strengthening for a number of reasons, and one of the main reasons is when the Nikkei fell out of bed. I want you to remember something about the yen that most non-currency traders don't actually know, and that is the yen has to serve two masters. So when the Asian session, the risk environment, the equities markets in Asia are having a bad day, the yen strengthens there. And then if we roll over into the US session, after maybe a pretty decent European and UK session, when we roll into the US session and the Nikkei strength or Nikkei weakness is rolling into whatever the Dow's going to do. In other words, right now, the Nikkei's having a tough time getting out of its own way. And yet the Dow's pretty supported within the context of an uptrend. So you come into the US session and the strength that we saw from the Asian market risk aversion kind of has to turn into yen reaction to risk appetite. When we're scared, when we're risk averse, when we're selling stocks, the yen typically strengthens. It's the anti-carry trade, if you will. And when we go into risk appetite, when we want to buy equities, when we're willing to take on risk looking for yield, the yen weakens. And that is the carry trade. How do I borrow or sell yen to fund the purchase of higher yielding, typically also riskier assets? That's how the carry works. And that's why the yen is so sensitive to the equities markets. So back on April 28th, when I initially set up this, March 28th, when I initially set up the trade in the yen, I knew the Dow was heading up higher, but I was thinking, you know what, we could see a bit of either a stall at resistance or a rollover. Much of my yen trade, my yen buy against the dollar, which is to say, I think the yen's going to be stronger than the US dollar. Let me buy that currency against a weaker currency. By now you got to remember the US dollar had just been whack-a-mole. It had definitely been weakened. And what I'm able to take advantage of is a weaker US dollar. So here's that weaker US dollar. Great. It's actually reaching a point at which I think it could weaken. Excellent. I know that I'm getting a correction on the dollar yen. Let's sell this currency that I think is going to be weak, and let's buy it against something that I think could be strong because the Dow may roll over. The Dow may correct. I'm not talking about a cave-in. I'm just talking about a correction within the context of an uptrend. What ended up happening actually is the Nikkei ended up falling out of bed, ended up definitely rolling over, weakening, and that triggered a lot of yen strength. That ended up being the catalyst, which is why I say, if you're going to trade the yen, understand what's happening in the Asian session and the US session, and a lot of what happens in the Asian session, especially when it keys off the BOJ and when it keys off China, it's going to carry sentiment and momentum into the UK, European, US sessions. Now, there were two trades I talked about specifically in that video. One, and by the way, I have the link for the video in the hyperlink below what you're watching right now. So this video that you're watching, just kind of glance lower and you'll see the link for the original video. So you can see that and kind of tie it all together. So what happens now? I was also looking at the pound yen because I'm looking at yen strength and I want to find the weaker currencies that I can buy yen against. See, this is what's so great. If I buy yen against a strong currency, I'm really not going to make any headway. The market's really not going to be able to follow through because there's competing strength. But if I'm able to buy a strong currency like the yen against something weaker, that's when you get monster follow through. That's when you get higher range pip movement. That's when you get these monster trends, which are the hallmark of currency trading. And by the way, this is something we're going to talk a lot more about in these free videos, which is there's actually 4 ways to trade currencies. One of them happens to be Forex. Forex isn't necessarily the only way to trade currencies. It's just one way, one place, if you will, to trade currencies, the spot market. We have futures, we have ETFs, and we have options on those futures or ETFs. So there's a number of places you can take a currency theme and execute that into different markets. It's not just about Forex. So let's talk about the management now, what I'm looking at. So one of the most important things, and I'm going to walk you through the pound yen here. This is a trade we took, and this pound yen was a 162.50 and a 161.50 short. And I know there's a lot of notes here because we're setting this trade up again. So 161.50, 162.50. By the way, that's way up here. Just to give you an idea of where we shorted this thing from. Okay, so you go back to the 28th, and so you can get an idea of where we shorted this thing from, up in this area, when the market went into the wave. As we sold off through, and this is the important part, the first profit target, what I call the non-negotiable first profit target, which was at 160.05. We not only take a profit at this point, and 162.50 to 160.05, you can do the arithmetic on that. That's 245 pips. The most important thing isn't the fact that we took 245 pips off the table, although that's pretty awesome. But the main point is we move our point of validity stop, which was 163.25, down to 162.55. Well, if you're kind of following along on prices, I've taken 245 pips off the table, and now the remainder of my risk only extends as far as my unrealized profit plus 5 little pips. Now I put in a break-even stop. I'm willing to risk house money, but not my capital. That's what we do on that first profit target. This is how we ensure a winner won't turn into a loser. Okay, so this is a really important point. By the way, a lot of these trades, especially like the dollar yen, is a trade that we could execute on JY futures, on FXY. And I think when you watch the first video that I've included with this one right here, it'll make sense as far as the follow through, how to manage it. And I use actually probably the less, if you will, sexy of the two trades. Dollar yen was a whole lot more movement, but I'm using the one that was a little bit quieter, the one that was a little bit lower risk in many ways as well. Dollar yen did much, much, much better. On top of that, of those 2 trades that I outlined, I'm just using the one that was pretty sedate, just to give you an example. I mean, it's easy to use the really great examples, but I want to show you what happens even when you're able to take a swing trade in a pretty quiet, sedate kind of market. But the main thing here is one of the great things about the pound, and I want to leave you with this in this free video. We're going to be talking a lot more this week about ways we can sell pound. It's one of the best stories out there. How can we take advantage of a very consistent weakness story in the pound? So stay tuned this week. I'm going to be giving you all sorts of watch lists and considerations for the MPC event that we have on Thursday with the Bank of England, the actual voting part of that Bank of England team that decides what to do with rates. That's this Thursday. So we could see some volatility and maybe another opportunity to take advantage of some awesome pound shorts.